Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another Mandy panel session. Today we are going to be talking about TV, film streaming, what media will be like in the post-pandemic world. I'm Jess, I'm with Mandy.com. I basically oversee things with the crew side of the platform in the US on the East Coast, and also I'm a producer, so know that side of things. I'm very, very excited to be here with Larry Namer. He is the co-founder of Entertainment, as well as the CEO of Metan Global Entertainment Group, as well as many, many other things I could list off. But yeah, Larry, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It's fun. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's really great seeing you. Before diving in, just for anyone viewing that doesn't know what Mandy.com is, we are a platform for creatives globally, and for actors, for crew, for singers, dancers, comedians, you name it. If you're in the entertainment world, it's the site for you. It's the place where you can find work, and for employers and productions to find the cast and crew that they need. So yeah, let's dive right in. Larry, what has been the biggest difference in your life since COVID's hit?
Well, number one is I've become, totally Zoom proficient. And I mean, I was doing a lot of virtual, remote stuff before, but now, having a face-to-face meeting with anybody is pretty rare. Because I'm here in LA, we're quarantined, and nobody wants to meet anybody else face-to-face, which for the entertainment business, it used to be all about those personal dinners and lunches and drinks and being able to pitch in person and stuff, and that's gone. So, I've really had to learn first how to really get people to pay attention, because nobody was in their office. And, when normally you'd call and you get somebody on the phone and you could pitch right away, now you leave a message on an answering machine and somebody tells the person the next day and they call you back the next day. And typically by that time, you forgot why you called them in the first place. So it's really, so the ability to deal with anything on, a quick or emergency basis is kind of, that's gone. So you kind of have to do your planning a little differently and stuff like that. But, for the most part, other than production itself, which we can't figure out how to get back in production on anything yet, it's business as usual. I mean, we're pitching projects and selling projects, or literally in all around the world, both in China and the US primarily.
Yeah, I know a lot of people probably are wondering how Entertainment came to be, and I know you get asked that a million times. Do you want to give a little brief summary of how you got to be in the position you're in now?
Sure. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and parents were both working class immigrant parents, and they beat me until I submitted to going to college. So I graduated with a degree in economics, and of course I couldn't figure out what you do with an economics degree. So I decided I would take a temporary job, and I took a job at a cable company that was building the cable system in Manhattan, and they hired me to be an assistant underground splicer, which meant that every morning at 8:30 I would go below the streets of New York, and I would come up at 5 o'clock, and I spent 8 hours putting wires together. But it was just when cable began to take off, and I as the cable industry grew, I kind of grew with it, and eventually became the head of operations in Manhattan. At a very young age, I think I was 25, and I had like 300 technical folks reporting to me and stuff like that. But then the big cities began franchising cable. They realized cable was something that they wanted literally in every city, not just New York. And I was one of the few people who knew how to build underground cable systems. So I got recruited to go out to LA and then build a cable system there. And it was the first, excuse me, it was the first 61 channel cable system built in the US. And you couldn't figure out what you put on the channels. And, as a Brooklyn kid out in LA, I see everybody going to the parties and the premieres and, all of that stuff. And I called the studios and said, how do I get on the list? And they went, well, cable, it's like the phone company. You're not really in our business. So no. So then I kind of went back to them and I said, listen, the only time I ever get to see a movie trailer is when I'm in the movies. And that's typically the best part of the movie. I said, don't you think you want to show that to people when they're at home so they want to go to the movies? And the response was, yeah, but it's really expensive and not many people have 2-minute slots. And I said, great, send me those movie trailers and I'll put them on TV, but I want to go to all those parties. And they said, yeah, okay, sure. So when we started doing, I put them on a channel simply called the Trailer Channel. And when we started doing surveys and said, what's your favorite channel? People say, oh, I love MTV, I love CNN, I love ESPN, and I love that Trailer Channel. And I started saying, wait a second, I'm getting the best, 2 minutes of a $50 million movie for free. And people love it as much as they like, the expensive production they're seeing on, these other channels. So then the company that I worked for that recruited me to go to LA decided to sell and move back to Canada. And I didn't go from New York to LA to go to Toronto. So a friend of mine and I, we just started kicking around ideas. And I said, there's this trailer thing that I've been doing on the cable system that people seem to love. And it was just when MTV really began to take off. And, I said, wait a second, there's really no difference between, hey, Madonna has a new video, and you turn to the video, you got the free to having a host go, and Schwarzenegger has a new movie, and you turn to the Schwarzenegger trailer. So we wrote the business plan. We thought it would be easy. Everybody told us, they said, oh, it's a good idea, but you're not Ted Turner. People don't wake up in the morning and start TV networks. And Alan and I weren't smart enough to listen. So we just kept at it 3.5 years. People telling us, good idea, but you're not Ted Turner or you're not Rupert Murdoch. And then finally we found somebody gave us a little bit of money, way less than you were supposed to have to start a TV network. And we just didn't listen and we put it on anyway. And the second it went on, everybody loved it. It grew. It was the fastest growing cable system in the US. And it's now arguably, the leading influencer of pop culture in the world. It's in 141 countries now. And, everything, the first real show we did outside of the trailers was called Talk Soup, which had a 25-year run and launched a lot of careers for a lot of people. And, then we did Howard Stern. We took a lot of chances because we didn't have money. So we couldn't do fancy production. We had to do innovative stuff. So Howard Stern and E! Hollywood True Stories and Wild on E! And now we end up with the Kardashians. It's all Kardashians all the time stuff. And so that's basically the E! story. And then I sold out. Alan and I sold out to Comcast NBC, and so they own it now. And we're still the founders. And it's like having a kid. The kid grows up and goes its own way when they get older, but no matter what you do, you're still a parent.
Yeah, I really love the story of the first time you got onto a red carpet. If you want to share that, if you know what I'm referring to.
Yeah, the going rate, or the amount of money you needed to start a TV network back then was somewhere between 60 and $100 million. And after 3.5 years, Alan and I realized that nobody's given us 60 or $100 million. So we met a guy on Wall Street who said, I really like this, but I'm only allowed to sign for 2.5. And we just said, you know what, give us the 2.5, we'll figure it out. So I called a friend that was teaching radio, television, film in Austin, Texas, and said, do you have any kids that need intern jobs? And so he sent me 31 interns from UT, Texas. So we literally started the company with 11 employees and 31 interns. And, we started with the movie trailers and we said, oh, wouldn't it be good if we could cover the Academy Awards? And we applied for credentials and they said, who are you? What are you? They said, there's no way, you're not getting any credentials. So not being one who'll take no for an answer, we went there and we climbed over the fence, literally threw the camera packs over the fence. We climbed over. And there we are on the red carpet interviewing people and stuff until security kind of figured out we didn't belong there and they politely asked us to leave. But that was kind of the start of it, because when the studios began to look at the numbers for our coverage there, we just took a very irreverent look at this and people loved it. It was very pirate. And, I think people got a big kick out of the fact that we really didn't belong there, or we were just kind of sneaking around. And, but the numbers were astounding. And then the next year they invited us back. And then, we decided that we'll put Joan Rivers on the red carpet and she'll ask people about what they're wearing. And it became a thing. I think even now the pre-show, the pre-show gets as many viewers as the actual awards themselves. So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the story. There's a bunch of questions that came in beforehand from social media, which we'll answer throughout this, but just for anyone viewing right now, feel free to comment on the Facebook Live. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible. One of the things that came in from Colin on our Instagram story is, what's the best pitch for a show you've ever heard and what made it so good?
Well, the best pitch for a show that I've ever heard, which unfortunately I never did, I got pitched the American Idol show, and I made a bunch of mistakes. I didn't hit home runs all the time. But I got pitched, and the pitch was amazing, but I couldn't figure out how it would fit for us and stuff like that. But it was just incredibly enthusiastic, incredibly logical, and but I ended up passing on it. Yeah, but then again, I'm the guy who passed on Ryan Seacrest several times too. And telling Ryan, that you're a nice kid, but maybe the entertainment business isn't for you. But yeah, I would say that pitch was one of the best ones that I've ever heard.
Nice. Yeah, that's interesting to hear. That's always super interesting where a show might land and what appeals to certain networks versus others. I know a lot of people are wondering, with the switch of streaming being the forefront of the industry right now, what kind of content streaming platforms are really going after. Are you able to shed any light in that?
Sure. Before, I've been a big fan of streaming platforms for the longest time. Way back, I was actually the primary consultant on Microsoft for interactive TV strategy. So I've always loved anything that kind of gets fans engaged and stuff like that. And you look at, it used to be you had this hierarchy. I'm a filmmaker. If you're TV, you're kind of in the middle. If you do internet content, you're at the bottom of the barrel. And even when attracting talent, you kind of went with that. People say, oh, no, I'm an actor. I only do films. Or I'm a filmmaker. I only do things for the movie theater. That's all changed. And I think it's changed forever. I think people have begun to realize that the stuff on the streaming platforms is incredibly high quality and stuff. This is not like you're producing lower quality stuff because it's TV. You look at the stuff that's on Netflix and Amazon and stuff now. It's TV as good as it ever was. Quite honestly, I don't think it's ever been better. But it's kind of, if you were a filmmaker and you're a big studio and you're doing Iron Man 17 or whatever, people will go back to the theater for those, Masters of the Universe, Star Wars and stuff. But it used to be that I would, be like Thursday afternoon. I go, I don't have much to do. Let me see what's in the movies. And I would kind of pick like the best of what's out there and just go to the movies. Quite honestly, I don't see myself doing that anymore. If it's a movie I really want to see with an audience, yes, I'll do it. But, just to go to the movies, probably not. And I think that's going to be the way a lot of people do it. So I think you'll see, the theaters with 16 screens begin to shrink those screens because the product won't be there. And then, if you were, doing, mid-budget movies, I think you're going to start to realize that, because now there's no place to put those movies, that you really want to create your product for these digital platforms, the streaming platforms. And then, from a creative point of view, one of the great things about a streaming platform is the you can do serialized programming. So instead of doing a 2 hour movie, you can do, a 10 part or an 8 to 10 part
Mhm.
miniseries. And just the way you created it, you do character development and stuff like that, you can really build it over time. I mean, to me, the great example that really kind of opened my eyes was Ozark. Um, it was just at the time everybody's saying, "Oh, Larry, we feel so bad. You spent your whole life in television. Now television is dead." And I watched Ozark and said, "What are you talking?" I said, "It's never been better. This is like the Godfather of TV stuff. I mean, it's just amazing quality." And with Ozark, I watched the first season. I liked it. The second, I said, second season can't be as good as the first. It was better. And then the third season was just like crazy good. The quality of writing, because the writers began to realize that you could really do character development when you have let's call it a wider palette. Um, so I think you'll see creative people have now flocked to the digital platforms. Because they're the only thing that's open. The movie theaters are not, and they begun to realize that creative freedom is as good, the money is as good, the interest in being innovative is more than it was before. Before, everything had to be so tightly packaged. Um, Now you can come in with new innovative ideas and actually have a place to land those.
Yeah, one of the questions that we got in advance from Danny was for emerging filmmakers, it used to be that you make a feature, get some festival play, and break out that way. Is the strategy still as practical as it once was? Or since limited series are so much more popular right now, should filmmakers try to focus more on that route?
Yeah, I would say focus on the limited series. Number one, there's more demand for those. I mean, a lot of people who shunned the digital platforms before as viewers have now kind of realized that there's great stuff on all these platforms. So the viewership is much higher. So that means the platforms actually have more money um, to spend. So their programming budgets have literally gone through the roof. And uh, they tend to be more innovative. People there are willing to take more chances. I mean, you go into a studio, without an established director, an established writer, and an established cast, and chances of coming out with a deal are probably slim. Um, so very hard to go that way. But the digital platform is much more open to doing things that are not quite the same as everybody else did.
Yeah, I know I told you before the call, if I ask anything you're not able to answer publicly, just say pass and we'll move on.
Sure.
Until you say that, keep asking away. So with that, how would a filmmaker go about getting one of those series onto a streaming platform service? Because there isn't that traditional cookie cutter way as a festival route might be.
Yeah, no, number one, it used to be a little bit easier, but now it's become a little bit more difficult. You have to be able to have someone go in with you or for you. So you need to have an agent or manager or a lawyer that has access to the buyers or the developers of the digital platforms. So that's a must. Nobody's taking unsolicited material that I know of is taking unsolicited materials. So you got to do that, or you got to or attach to a what would be called a showrunner that has a
Mhm.
track record with those platforms. You can get in. Like I pretty much can get in and pitch without having to go through an agent or a lawyer. But if you're if you're young and you're starting out, you need someone to walk you in.
Yeah. So, do you have any advice on how to go about getting an agent then?
Well, there are all different levels of agents. If you're brand new, you're going to get the lowest level of agent. I mean, there are agents that'll take you because they themselves are starting out. And as long as they have credentials, it's fine. You're not going to get Netflix saying, "Oh, you're not a high enough agent," whatever. If you're a legitimate agent, you'll get in and you'll get to pitch and do all of that. Um, there's no such thing as starting at the top. The big agencies, the CAAs, um, they look at anybody, whether it be show creators or talent, and they look at it at how much money that they're going to earn on their commission from that person. So unless they can see that they're going to make $1 million a year from signing you, they're not going to sign you. And I'm generalizing, but that's pretty much the way they look at it. So you got to start with an agent that says, "Hey, this is a great talent. I really believe them. That it's going to be really very aggressive in pitching you and your projects." And again, a lot of it is aggressiveness. I mean, a lot of times, like I look at a project, somebody sends me and I go, it's not for me. But then the agent, the lawyer, manager will just keep at me. They'll finally go, "All right, fine, I'll take the pitch." And lo and behold, you say, "Gee, I should have jumped on that one from the beginning." So, finding a young, if you're starting out, find a young, aggressive manager that's willing to just keep at it until they get you in the door.
Yeah, and I think that's also a very similar mindset of just being a new filmmaker or an actor starting out, to not give up and just be very persistent with what you're doing.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned possibly attaching a showrunner or something like that. For anyone watching on Mandy, you can use the platform to hire anyone you might need. Showrunner being one of those roles. Anything pre-production, production, post, actors, actresses, anything you need, you can use our service. Someone on our marketing team will put in the comments below or to the side, whichever way you're viewing it, a link. If you're in North America and want to meet with a representative from Mandy, you can fill out that form and we can help you with posting any of those jobs so we can get as many opportunities as possible for our users. That little pitch aside, let's go to one of the questions that were asked live here. Mark says, "I work as a composer for advertising and film. What is the best route to go when wanting to write music for a TV production directly, or do companies mainly use other sources?"
And no, that's actually a good one because I get, I'm not attached to any music sources per se, but when I'm doing a project, I tend to get pitched by a lot of people who do music, and I just kind of go by what I think is best and what best fits the project and stuff. Um, you know, Music people typically find me on LinkedIn, and they just send me copies of their stuff, and I love music. I think music is half the project, quite honestly. You get a great track in a movie, and it just elevates the movie. So I really pay attention to the music side. So when people send me stuff, I do listen to it, and I will pick people based on what I think fits the project.
I know I've talked to a lot of employers in this position that say that they get unsolicited emails all the time from people. Whenever they put something on Facebook, a bunch of composers send them messages. How does someone stand out behind all that noise if someone is getting constantly messages from other creatives?
Well, if it's something like a script or a story idea and stuff like that, even with us, just for legal reasons, you'll have to go through an agent or a lawyer, because just people are litigious, and you end up getting accused of plagiarizing somebody's work, because it's like, hey, I wrote a movie that had a woman in it. You just made a movie with a woman in it, so therefore you stole my idea. And you spend a fortune on defending yourself against some of the most ridiculous things. So everybody is pretty much adopted, for that kind of stuff. You have to go through somebody, and you gotta, get paperwork, NDAs, and all that kind of stuff out. But with music, it's quite different for me anyway. I mean, people send me links, and if you keep them short, don't send me a symphony, but send me, an example of, who you are and what, your music talents are. And I'll listen to it. And I've hired people, that way literally all my life. I mean, but
Yeah.
music is definitely different than the other stuff.
Yeah. And that was like one of the things with Mandy, if you're posting jobs, is you don't have your email out there, the application stay on the platform, so you don't have to be bombarded by emails, which is nice. But yeah, I know what it's like to have that inbox clogged, but it's hard when you're just trying to get out there. Chris asked, as far as work as a director, would you also need some sort of agent or lawyer? I guess we could open that up to any role. If you're trying to break into a network, a Netflix, or something like that, how do you do that if you don't have an agent? Is it
You can
possible?
you can always get an agent. Okay. They may not be the best agent, and you're gonna, most likely you're gonna have to work your way up the ladder. The more work you get, the more of the next level of agents and stuff will be interested in you. I mean, again, it all, I hate to be that blunt, but it all revolves around money. If you're just starting out and there's, not a lot of money in representing you, you're not going to get a big agent who's used to, getting higher commissions and, selling people for higher amounts of money. But you work your way up the ladder. I mean, there's no such, you're not going to start at the very top. With directors, a little bit different because you typically have a directing reel, and sometimes I'll look at directing because the legal liability is not as great with directors. It's not like you say you stole my directing. So I'll look at those. People will send me those once in a while, and as long as it's short, I mean, send me something that's more than 5 minutes. There's not a chance in heck that I'm going to watch it. But if you send me something that's 2 minutes or 3 minutes and I can watch it quick, and then I may look at it and say, hey, that's kind of interesting. Do you have something more I could look at? And you may send me a short film that you did. But again, directors are different because legal liability is different.
If someone's pitching a show, I'm pretty sure
Your audio cut out. I can't hear you. Hello?
okay,
Now
technical
you're back.
difficulty. Yeah, cool. When you have someone that's trying to pitch a show, do you recommend them do a little teaser trailer or a full-on pilot?
Teaser trailer. I don't ask anybody to do full on pilot. I'm either going to get it very quickly or not. Give me something, minimum 3, maximum 7. I'm okay.
Perfect, thank you. The question that many people are tuning in for is, where do you see the future of media going?
Well, it goes all digital. I think, yes, we'll still have movie theaters, and the movie theaters will be good for those big blockbusters. But I think, the the art house films and those kind of things will migrate almost entirely to digital platforms, which I think is fine. Again, I look at the stuff that's on, Netflix and Prime and now Peacock and Disney and stuff, and it's amazing. I think one of the things digital platforms did, I mean, I actually tried doing a Broadway play years ago, and it was awful. I mean, it was just horrible because technology wasn't really as what it is today, and you couldn't capture it. But you watch Hamilton on Disney, and it's amazing. A 3-hour play, and I sat there without getting up 10,000 times, and so I think digital has opened up a lot in terms of creativity and being able to do different stuff. If I were starting out, that's where I would start. I mean, even in music, I'm doing now through my company in China, actually building a facility here in LA to do live streaming into Asia, where they like a lot of the Western artists, the Ariana Grandes and the Sheerans and the Charlie Puth and Billie Eilish. But, other than a few cities, they never really get to see people live, is to do live streaming concerts into China and Japan and Korea. Um, and we're going to actually start that in December. Um, and 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when I would talk to managers, music, and I would tell them what I wanted to do, the answer was, "Oh, we don't really do that. That's not the way we do things." Now they're calling back and go, "Remember that idea you had for the concerts? If my artist doesn't work, I don't get a commission, and I really need to pay my mortgage this month." Um, so people are much, much more open to new ideas and new models of doing things, where before everybody was kind of stuck in their old ways and they never wanted to change.
Tasneem asked, do you think that with the industry moving digital platforms, do you think there's going to be a faster pace of churning over new content?
Oh, by far, by far. I mean, people are consuming stuff, at voracious rates and stuff, and binge watching, digital platforms. You can binge watch, so you don't have to, wait 22 weeks to see a season of a TV show. I mean, you can watch that in a good weekend. Um, so yeah, there'll be a lot of that, and it also changes the way that you create things, knowing that you don't have this week in between uh, that people are going to watch episode after episode after episode. So you create a little differently. It definitely has effect on your writing and your producing and, and your storytelling.
One of the questions we also got beforehand was about that whole turnaround. They said many productions have been backlogged and or canceled due to the current state of affairs with the pandemic. Do you think studios will be more or less interested in greenlighting new projects before tackling the ones that have already been slated?
Clearly, they're going to tackle the ones that are slated because they already have money invested in those. Even us, we had to put everything on hold. So our first priority is getting restarted, fixing those, getting them restarted before we even look at new stuff. Again, because we already have some level of money into those, and we want to salvage as much as we can. So,
what if something comes up that you think is very timely with the current state of the environment and what's going on? Will that be pushed in front of the docket, or?
And a twofold answer. So for us, the answer is yes, because we're not a big, so we're a nimble little, relatively small, but very nimble company. We could pivot on a dime. And, in Metan, it's really Gene, our partner in China, Marty Pompadour, and myself. And if we like something and we think it should get moved to the front of the pile, we do it because essentially we're entrepreneurs. We've managed to survive in this world of big studio monsters and stuff like that. And that's the way we've been able to survive, is that we can move a lot quicker than they can. I mean, with the studio, to get something greenlighted, it's got to go through 5 committees, and then the distribution guys, and then the ad sales guys, and then the theater set. It goes through a whole process. It takes a long time. With us, literally, if we see something that we like, we jump on it in 2 seconds, and we'll push it to the front.
A question from the Instagram story was, do you think that the red carpet and world premieres will still happen? And if so, do you think they're going to operate the same way that they've been?
My personal feeling, even though people are saying that stuff is going to come back later this year or early next year, I don't believe that. I think you're not going to see the lot. Well, certainly, the Emmys you didn't see, and I don't think you'll see the Academy Awards live the same way. I think maybe the following year. I think a lot depends on whether the vaccines come back and people feel safe. But I don't see any of that stuff coming back before next summer, quite honestly. Certain things I think will go away. I mean, in the music world, you have touring, which will resume at some point. You know, and it'll be kind of staged, you know, where you'll have limited audiences at a concert or whatever. Festivals, God, I don't know how those ever come back. I mean, if you look at the average age of people who go to Coachella, you know, and you say, okay, a lot of 16-year-old kids are going for the weekend. I don't know many parents that are letting their 16-year-old go and hang out with 100,000 other kids, you know, literally sleeping on top of each other. So I don't hold a lot of faith that the festivals will come back within the next 2 to 3 years, maybe sometime further than that. But concerts will come back. And, you know, again, I think next summer is probably it, where the vaccine will be out for long enough and, you know, enough people will be immune or stuff to allow that stuff to happen.
Yeah, it's all about COVID safety as we learn more and more. It's exciting to see film production.
Yeah,
That's,
okay, go ahead. You cut out again.
can you hear me now?
Now I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really exciting to see film production starting back up with COVID safety. We did a Facebook Live a little while ago on how you can still shoot with COVID safety, which you could check out on our page, a bunch of other Facebook Lives. And that's just been really cool to see come back into fruition. But that said, there are changes, but the changes could be exciting. So I know you're saying you think it might be a few years for festivals, but to give some hope, I guess, what excited you most about the entertainment industry that brought you into it? And what are you most?
You cut out again.
What are you looking forward to most with the changes coming in the entertainment industry?
Well, you know, look, it's better than being an accountant and sitting in an office from 9 to 5. I mean, and it's a lot of work, and you know, you're typically putting in long days. But you know, it's the entertainment industry is fun, and you get to meet your favorite stars, and you get to do all kinds of fun, creative stuff, and you know, that's fine. I mean, I'm actually working on something now that I think is really interesting. I was an advisor, but I've now kind of joined the team at a company called FanVestor. Um, and FanVestor is an investment platform where fans of anybody can invest in their favorite celebrities, whether they be their primary focus. So if you have a star and he wants to do you know, a passion project and needs to raise $10 million to make the movie, you could use the FanVestor platform to raise that money. Or, you know, if you're a celebrity and you want to do a clothing line, you know, which is kind of outside of your core expertise, but you have fans that believe in you and stuff like that, you could use that platform. So I think the whole thing of fan investing has changed dramatically. During the Obama administration, they issued some new laws which now let non-accredited investors invest in things. So, you know, before, you know, you had to have net worth of $1 million, which basically eliminated the fans of anything or anybody. Now you could, you know, these things allow people to invest as low as $10. So you're seeing a lot of fans investing in things, you know, that are the primary focus of their favorites, or even, you know, offshoots or passion projects. To me, that's kind of fun because now the fans actually have a voice in, you know, in the business, and I think it's essential.
Do you think that going back into streaming platforms, do you think that these networks or these production companies will be able to keep up with the demand of streaming platforms because users consume and binge watch material so quickly?
Yeah, and I think you've seen, you know, it started with Netflix, and then Prime came along, and you know, and then Disney came along, and then Paramount came along, and Peacock came along, and um, so I think there's now enough people in there that you've got a big, you know, buying group there. And a lot of, you know, people who were doing more traditional media have now migrated and creating stuff for them. So I think you'll see that continue to grow. I think, some of the other things that, I think were a little bit ill-conceived. I've never been a big Quibi fan. I never quite understood what the point was. But I could watch these videos on TikTok or YouTube, and do I really need to subscribe to Quibi to get them? Things like that I think will go away. I think everybody jumped in and said, "Oh, I got to be digital. I got to be digital," and they really didn't understand what that meant. But like even now, when I cast for stuff, I got to admit I'm doing a movie called Empress about the first woman ruler of China, and I'm doing the movie using American-born Chinese and Canadian-born Chinese. Of course, I'm doing a movie in English, and I'm doing a lot of the casting on TikTok. Finding amazingly great talent there. I think, what digital has done is, instead of me having to interview 10 people a day in person, I could go 100 people a day digitally, and I'm finding people that are better than the ones I used to see live. So.
And maybe we can convince you to use Mandy to cast up. Wink, wink.
It's very possible.
So any actors out there might want to keep an eye out for that. One of the questions that just came in from Ross is about, with everything moving digital, what about short films? Festivals is where a lot of short films went. What do you think is going to be the future of shorts?
Well, I think they go to digital platforms and stuff. I mean, I think they work well. And again, you look at the stuff that I'm probably more Netflix than anything else and stuff. And there's great stuff there. And where short films were an orphan for a while, I love them now. And I love short films. I love limited series. You don't have to do 10-parters for me. It doesn't have to be Game of Thrones kind of stuff, but you do 2-3 part stuff. And it's great, because I can consume it in one evening. And I've seen amazing stuff that, you never could have imagined would find its way onto, media platforms. Like there was a show that actually came, it was called Unorthodox. It was a 4-part series that was actually subtitled, which normally Americans don't watch subtitles. And the entire show was done in Yiddish, which is an old Jewish language that died away 70 years ago. But it was amazing. The quality was just unbelievable. The acting was unbelievable. And if you were to pitch that, prior to this takeoff of digital platforms, nobody ever would have gone for that. But digital platforms are encouraging, creativity in new forms, and they're not so set in their ways. So I think short films have a tremendous opportunity there.
Do you think a platform like Netflix will create a section for short films?
I certainly think so, yeah. I
think that's really great to hear.
I think it's already in the works.
Cool. That's like wink, wink. Cool. On our Insta stories, we have.
You cut out again. Can't hear you.
Maybe.
Now I hear you.
Can you? Cool. What is the best advice you have for an aspiring producer that's already been working a few years? And another question we were asked was, what is your best advice for fresh out of college filmmakers?
Well, fresh out of college, for people who have experience, again, get an agent, who can take your projects into places. I mean, even to folks like me who, let's say, a non-studio or non-platform, just the legal, people. I don't think people realize how crazy the legal system is and stuff. Like I say, somebody will come in and, pitch me a movie and I'll pass on it, and then I'll do something else, and they'll come back and literally going, well, you used a woman in your movie and I pitched you a movie with a woman in it, so therefore you stole my idea. And then, I'm tied up in a year in legal stuff over the most ridiculous, kind of things and stuff. So we've all kind of, learned that we need to just not do that. So, getting stuff in front of us really does require having an agent or a lawyer, so we know we're a little bit protected from silly legal stuff. And so anybody who's a recognized producer, again, get yourself aligned with somebody who can take your projects in the door. For people right out of college, it's find an intern job, find an entry level job, and start building your contacts and building your just awareness in the industry. It's no longer, you can't just be creative anymore. You need to really understand the business, and you got to realize that there's a food chain in the entertainment business. It's not just like, hey, I have a great idea, people are going to give me money to do it. It doesn't work like that. You have to really understand that, there are lawyers and there are agents and there are platforms and there are development people, and how you got to learn how to work the system. And it's best if you do it working someplace that's already working the system.
Mm-hmm. And what would your best advice be for actors and actresses trying to get seen?
Short films and things like that are great, because we look at it, and quite honestly, these days, like I say, I love TikTok as a way to see people. There's unbelievable talent out there. I mean, the great thing that the digital world has done is it's really let anybody with talent be able to show off their talent. You got to market yourself and do all of that stuff, but I'm actively looking for new, fresh talent, and I'm using these digital platforms to find it, and stuff. So yeah, that's where I would go.
Cool. And with new projects, I'm just kind of combining a few questions into one that have been asked. Do you tend to seek out new concept ideas, or do you tend to have internally your team come up with ideas for new shows?
It's a combination of both. My team typically works on my crazy ideas, of which I wake up in the morning with 10 new ones every day. Usually by nighttime, they either kill all 10 or they'll kill 9 and study one a little bit more. And for the most part, they're right. But you really need to just find stuff that you think has legs and stick with it and stuff. And it comes to us in all different ways. I wouldn't say we're probably half and half between the stuff that we come up with versus the other half things that people pitch us.
Cool. Everyone watching live, make sure you put questions in if you haven't already while we finish the last few minutes. Get those questions in. With the streaming platforms, because that's just a big topic people ask about, would you recommend focusing on shows, movies, or are both still the same value right now?
I would first start with shorter stuff. I mean, right now, a lot of platforms are doing a lot of half-hour stuff, that are not necessarily reality, but kind of docu-reality stuff. I think that shows off a lot of capabilities, and they're reasonably inexpensive to do compared to, going in and pitching a 1-hour drama kind of series that's $3 million an episode. You're more likely to get $300,000 an episode, do something that's shorter form. But I think that, beyond that, limited series are those. And when I say limited series, people are always looking for something that has the capability of going 3 seasons. So when you prepare something and it's just 1 season, you're not going to sell it. You have to be able to say, okay, here's how we continue the storyline into season 2 and hopefully, into season 3. But you have to approach it. 8 to 10 episodes is typically what they're looking for. And they want to see that there's at least a season 2 and most probably a season 3 to it. And nobody wants to go beyond season 4. So you got to show that you're going to be able to wrap this up, even if it's successful, that you could wrap it up in less than 4.
Would you say that you could pitch a limited series if you're not already a big established name, as in was from the beginning marketed as it is only going to be this one season?
Yes, you can, but again, you got to go in with somebody. If you're a development exec at any of these platforms, if you make a big mistake, you get fired and stuff. So realize that that person is looking as much as going, okay, this is a great idea. I love it. There's a talented person, but do they really understand how to get this made and get it made in high quality? And that's the biggest fear. Um, Taking a chance on a person who's never done it before is very, very risky. I mean, the reward is high if you were right, but if you weren't right, you're fired. Um, and most people there, look to cover their butt. So, they're going to want to look at it and, be able to say, oh, yeah, but, Larry Namer was involved and, he's had so many hits and that's why I did it. At least you cover yourself and you could explain why you did it. But if you do something that's just kind of out of the blue and it doesn't work, you're gone. So you're not going to find many people willing to take that level of risk.
Gotcha. A question from JJ. When you create a
You cut out again.
yes, no.
Now you're back.
Cool. Question from DJ. If you create a proof of concept teaser trailer, should you release it publicly to gain traction or keep it private just to the investors and studio and all that kind of stuff?
I think you release it. I mean, everybody thinks if they put something out there, it'll get stolen or whatever. And I don't think I think that if you get it out there and you show that it has traction and you show that it has an audience, and the more data you can bring in as to who's watching, why, how you found them and stuff like that, the better your chance of selling it.
Cool. A question from David. Are movies made for TV, such as Hallmark or Lifetime movies, still a financially viable option for new features and independent filmmakers, or have the streaming services taken hold of the whole TV movie market?
I think the digital platforms have taken hold on most of that. The budgets that used to be, for the Lifetime and the A&E stuff have come down so much. Where you used to be able to, get something done for $1 million, $1.5 million, and get them to pay for it. They're now down to the low hundreds of thousands and stuff. So, in my mind, go pitch the digital platforms. You get a lot more creative freedom and you have a lot more upside.
So is it better to your investors when pitching the ROI to target Netflix versus Hallmark if it's a traditionally Hallmark type of movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most investors these days are very hip to the digital platforms and the value and the ability for them to continue at a high level. I mean, if you have something that's a hit and they commission a second season or a sequel and stuff, the amount of money that they're willing to put into it is quite good. With the Hallmarks, then it's, if they're going to give you 300,000 for a movie of the week kind of thing, and it's good, they're going to give you another 300,000 for the next one. You get a Netflix series that works well, they may give you that 300,000, but if it really takes off, you'll get 2 million on the next one. So for an investor point of view, is you look for upside. I mean, I don't see any big upside with the Hallmarks anymore.
Interesting. A question from Diane. What genres do you think the big markets are most interested in at the moment?
Well, I think the action adventure stuff. I think if you look at the stuff that's come out of Israel lately, like Fauda and Tehran and stuff like that, those are doing amazingly well. And they didn't cost that much compared to shooting it here. So those things do incredibly well, and I think the platforms are all looking for that kind of stuff. Disney obviously looks for stuff that's a little more family and Disney-like and stuff. So action adventure. On rom-coms on the digital on Netflix do well. Uh, you know, those are the main ones that I would think.
With the future being digital, would you recommend for someone to pitch the idea first or create it first and try to sell it to something like a Netflix?
Yeah, well, again, two-part answer. If you're just beginning and you don't have, a lot of resources, I'd say, create a proof of concept thing, a little short thing, and, just because you don't want to go and spend a lot of money and then go in and go, oh, we commissioned the series just like that. We're not going to do another one. So you want to minimize your risk by doing the least costly kind of thing. But we just did a series, a 10-parter that we're literally just taking out now to Netflix and Amazon. It's called Nova Vita. It's kind of this action adventure sci-fi thing, and we self-finance that. So we financed it, we produced it. It's done 10 parts, I think. And the advantage there when you go in and you sell something to Netflix, and if you expect them to pay for it, so they want to own it. So you're going to give up all your rights, and they're going to own it, and that's it. They may hire you for season 2. They may not hire for season 2. It's entirely up to them. If it's a huge hit, they're going to make all the money, and you're not. So if you're a little more recognized and you have the wherewithal, you could produce something, finance it yourself, and then go in and license it to Netflix. So with Nova Vita, we would look to do a license it for 2 years to them, and then all rights revert back to us. We maintain creative control. We maintain worldwide. We could sell it 10 years down the road to TV stations anywhere in the world. And so if you have the wherewithal to do it, you do it yourself and then license it to them. If you're looking for them to pay, realize they're going to own it. You're not.
Great. That's really great to know for everyone out there watching. I know there are a lot more questions, but to be mindful of Larry's time, we're going to start wrapping up. I'm going to say a few housekeeping things. One, if you are an employer in North America and want a meeting with us, we do have that form that you can fill out. 2, if you want to watch back this Facebook Live or share it with anyone else, it will be on Mandy's Facebook page along with all of our other Facebook Lives. Make sure you check out Mandy if you don't already. Other thing is, Larry, do you have any of your current ventures that you want to promote? I know you promoted one of the apps, but do you want to share anything else?
The 2 newer things that I'm doing, you can always find me at Metan, metanglobal.com. Fanvestor, I think, is an interesting one, and it's kind of a new idea, a new way to finance projects. The other thing I'm doing, which people found quite unusual, people that know me, I'm involved in a project called Beauty Queen, Queen with a K, and it's basically a social media club that's really geared to the LGBTQTI community. And Richie Rich, who was one of the original club kids, Richie was the designer for Gaga and a lot of other people. And it's really a fun thing, fun project. They're starting their first show, starts next month, called Gods of Glitter. And it's kind of this social media talk show, but all revolved around, makeup and beauty and things like that. And that's a fun one. So that's them.
I'm going to throw in another question, if that's okay, because I've had a lot of employers ask this one. With licensing for streaming services, where does the financial incentive come from for investors? Is it by how many eyes hit the project through the streaming service, or how does that work?
Typically, if you license to, let's say, in Netflix, we kind of go by this rule of thumb. So let's say a project is $1 million an episode. Okay, and we put up the $1 million, or our investors put up the $1 million. We'll license it to Netflix or a streaming platform for anywhere between 40 and 60% of what it cost us. But we get all the rights back. So now I could sell the international, I could sell TV syndication, we could sell merchandise, we can, so the investors will make their money that way. Takes the window is a little longer, but that's the way we do it. Now, if the series is good and Netflix likes it, so even though you're at $1 million, they may offer you $1.5 million for season 2. Now the investors do really well. Typically investors in these kind of projects, they recoup their money first, and then they share in the profits, anywhere up to 50% of the profits, and the other 50 go to the producers and directors and talent and stuff like that. So a very similar model to the movie business, movie investing. I mean, it's worked exactly that way. Investors put their money in, they recoup first, plus usually a premium of anywhere between 10 and 20%, and then they share 50% of the profits. You're gone again. Now you're back.
I'm back. Larry, please stick around after we end this so we can chat for a bit. For voiceover artists, anything and everything in the entertainment field, you can use our platform. It's been really great to have Larry with us. Thank you so much again for coming and agreeing to doing this talk. And as always, Mandy's here as a resource to help you through all of your needs throughout pandemic and beyond. Thanks, guys.